Jerry, I think it's important here also to talk about your point, the insurance implications here. We talked about this earlier today. The fact that churches need to be careful about misrepresentations they make on their insurance application form. Sometimes those are filled out by a lower level office staff, and those are exceedingly important documents where you can be denied insurance coverage because of misrepresentations. And so, for example, you and I are both familiar with a case in one particular state where a child in a church preschool somehow got away from the group and got into a church baptistry and drowned. And the church turned this horrendous case over to its insurance company, but the insurance company ultimately denied any coverage on the basis of a misrepresentation in the church's insurance application. And when you looked at that application, when one of the dozens and dozens of questions was, do you operate a preschool? And whoever that office worker was, for whatever reason, it was inadvertent, I'm sure, checked the box that said no. That singular act resulted in the loss of insurance coverage for that horrendous death that has the potential for significant economic damages to that church. And they had no insurance to provide an attorney to defend them. They have no insurance to indemnify, to pay for any judgment or settlement because of checking the wrong box to one of 50 questions on that insurance application. So the same thing can happen here. Do you have a security guard? Hey, those of you that allow concealed weapons permit holders to wander around the church, have you correctly filled out your insurance application? Maybe you need an amendment. You should be contacting your insurance agent to ensure that there's not going to be a potential for misrepresentation based on what you said on that. And let me tell you, again, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, Jerry, that is a very important document. That's going to determine whether you have coverage or not. In many cases, make sure those answers are accurate and truthful, and in fact, it should be reviewed. If you have a lower level person in the office fill that out, be sure you have somebody, the senior pastor, maybe a board member. There should be a few people. You should have an insurance committee, in my opinion, that evaluates the form to be sure that every question is truthfully answered.
In addition to that, in regards to off-duty police officers operating on behalf of you, we had actually one of our largest claims was we had an individual that was a police officer, and most of the police officers, when they're operating off-duty, the local law enforcement agency requires a certificate of insurance from that church so that the law enforcement is not held liable while they're operating or working for the church. And we actually had a law officer actually get hit by a car as he was trying, somebody was trying to take off and was probably doing something that they shouldn't have been doing, but he got hit by a car. And the work comp carrier said, well, he's not actually paid for this, but because they did other things for them, they did consider it remuneration, and the work comp ended up picking up the coverage. So you need to look at your work comp coverage as well as your general liability on how you answer questions to make sure that there is coverage.